Greetings, YouTube! The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons and Dragons. And today we are going to be talking about the spell Symbol. I have the Legacy version up here right now. We are going to be comparing this to the 2024 version. And we are going to be looking at the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition and 3rd edition versions of this spell and seeing how they differ from the 5e and the 2024 5e version. So, a lot of stuff to go through. Don't miss out and stay tuned. All right. Before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. And don't forget to hit that notification bell and share this video. All right. So, back in the day, we gave this spell a C, kind of. There are different versions of this spell, and some of them actually got an A, and some of them got a C. It just depended on the effect that was happening when you cast this spell. So let's move the arrow back over here. And let's take a look at the Legacy version and just refresh ourselves as to what this spell did. So it was 7th level. It took a minute to cast it, so it was something that you were probably not going to use in combat. It had a range of touch with a 60-foot radius around the area where it was. Verbal, somatic, and material component. And that material component was a hefty 1,000 gold pieces. So it was mercury, phosphorus, and powdered diamond and opal, worth a total of 1,000 gold pieces, which is all consumed by the spell. So this was not a cheap spell to cast. It did last until triggered or dispelled, so it lasted for a very long time. So when you cast the spell, you inscribed a glyph on a surface or an object that can be closed to conceal the glyph, such as a book, a scroll, or a chest. So you could put it like on the inside of a chest. You could put it on the top of the lid of the chest. You could put it inside of a book. You could put it on a door, things like that. If you chose a surface, the glyph can cover an area of the surface no larger than 10 feet in diameter. If you chose an object, that object must remain in place. If the object is moved more than 10 feet, then the glyph is broken and the spell ends without being triggered. That's an important thing. So you couldn't really move this around. Took a minute to cast it, so it wasn't really going to be cast in combat, and you couldn't move it around. So it is nearly invisible, and it takes a intelligence investigation check to find it against the spell DC of the spell. So you decide what the trigger was. They kind of give you some examples, and then this is what it could do. There were 8 different things it could do. It could do death, discord, fear, hopelessness, insanity, pain, sleep, and stunning. All pretty good. Death was 10d10 necrotic damage, which is a con save, not great. Discord was a con save. If you failed, then you just basically biggered. Fear was a wisdom saving throw. You were frightened for a minute, and then you had to drop whatever you're holding, and you had to move at least 30 feet away from the glyph on each of your turns. At least 30 feet. Hopelessness, charisma save, that's a great one, and you're overwhelmed with despair for a minute, and you just basically do nothing. Insanity was an intelligence saving throw. That's always the best thing to target is intelligence, and on a failed save, you were insane. Pain was a con save. We don't really care for that. Sleep was a wisdom saving throw, and you fall unconscious, but you could be slapped awake. And then stunning was a wisdom saving throw, or you were stunned for a minute. Okay, so that is the Legacy version. Now, the 2024 version took some things away, which I don't know if I entirely agree with that. So it's still a 7th level spell, still 1 minute, still touch 60 feet, still verbal, somatic, and material component. Oh, the one thing I did forget is the Legacy version could be used by bards, clerics, and wizards. This one still cost the 1,000 gold pieces worth of powdered diamond, but it is now usable by bards, clerics, druids, and wizards. Okay? And all the other stuff is still basically the same. You can put it on a surface. You can put it on an object. If you put it on an object, you can't carry it more than 10 feet away. You get to decide what happens. It is now. This is another difference too, and this I feel is a nerf. To find this was an investigation check. Now it is a perception check, which to me makes more sense, but it is a nerf because there are way more characters who have perception and are trained in perception than there are characters who are trained in investigation with good intelligence scores. Wisdom score, way more with a high wisdom score, way more trained in perception. So it's going to be easier to find the symbol after it's cast. All right, so you can set the trigger, etc., etc. And now we're only getting 6 options. So they took away hopelessness and insanity. So we still have death. It still does exactly the same thing. We still have discord. So that is a wisdom save. We still have fear, a wisdom save. Pain is still a constitution save. Sleep is a wisdom save, does exactly the same thing. And stun is a wisdom save. But they got rid of hopelessness and they got rid of, let's see, it was hopelessness and insanity. Hopelessness was a charisma saving throw and insanity was an intelligence saving throw. So in my opinion, that is a huge, massive nerf. The insanity one, which is probably the best one out of these, on a failed save, you're driven insane for 1 minute. An insane creature cannot take actions, cannot understand what other creatures say, cannot read, speaks only gibberish, and then the GM controls its movement, which is erratic. Most likely things are going to fail that one. The next one is hopelessness, because it's a charisma save. On the failed save, the target is overwhelmed with despair for 1 minute. During this time, it cannot attack or target creatures with any harmful abilities, spells, or other magical effects. It's basic. You can still move, but it's basically not going to be doing it. It's just hopeless. Those are gone, and now we're stuck with wisdom and constitution saving throws only, which I feel is a very big nerf. Now, what are we giving this spell? Now that they did that, we're giving this spell a C-. I don't like the fact that they did that to this spell. I don't see any reason for it. It is a 7th level spell, so it should, it deserves some power to it. All right, let me take this out of here, the rating, and let me get the arrow out of here. And we're going to look at the versions of the spell from previous versions. So this is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Let me put myself over here so you can see my stuff here. So Symbol in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was an 8th level spell, okay? And being an 8th level spell was higher than 7th level, obviously. And it was range of touch, Symbol spell, and it was 8 segments, so it was basically an action at that point. Symbol spell causes the creation of magical runes, which affect creatures which pass over, touch, or read or pass through a portal upon which the symbol is inscribed. So it's a portal, so it's a doorway, something like that. Upon casting the spell, the magic user inscribes the symbol upon whatever surface he or she desires. So not necessarily a portal. I mean, Gary Gygax wrote one sentence and then he contradicts himself in the next sentence. I don't really get that. Now, this spell was also a 7th level spell for clerics as well. But they didn't get as many options as the magic user, which is essentially the wizard and the sorcerer. So there was death. 1 or more creatures whose total hit points do not exceed 80, dead. There was discord. All creatures are affected and immediately fall to loud bickering and arguing. So there was a saving throw, obviously. And then if you failed your save, this stuff happened. Furthermore, there is a 50% probability that creatures of different alignment will attack each other. The bickering lasts for 5 to 20 rounds. The fighting for 2 to 8 rounds. There's fear. So extra strong fear spell. The spell, all creatures save. Actually, I think the discord was it just happened. And the death was it just happened. There was no save for those. Fear had a saving throw. It was at a -4, and you fled if you got hit. Hopelessness. All creatures are affected and must turn back in dejection unless they save versus magic. So this one had a save. Affected creatures will submit to the demands of any opponent. That is, they'll just surrender. And the hopelessness lasts for 3 to 12 turns, which a turn was 10 minutes. That's a really long time. And let's see, on the next page, Let me move myself over here now. So on the next page, we got insanity, we got pain, sleep, and stunning. So one or more creatures whose total hit points do not exceed 120 become insane and remain doing so, acting as a confusion spell. No save. Pain. All creatures affected having racked pains, they take a dex penalty and a -4 on attack dice for a long time. No save. Sleep. All creatures under 8+1 hit die will immediately fall asleep. No save. One or more creatures whose total hit points do not exceed 160 are stunned by the stunning symbol. No save. So a lot of this stuff was no save. All right. So that's Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, or 1E, as some of you like to call it. And here is the symbol from 2nd edition. Again, it was an 8th level magic user spell, 7th level cleric spell. Same stuff. There's a special save. And they didn't really change a lot here. So we've got death, discord, fear, and hopelessness. And they all basically did the same thing. There were some saves for some things, and some and other things didn't have saves. Sanity, pain, sleep, and stunning. And it was a 5,000 gold piece diamond dust and powdered black opal. So that's how that carried over. But this one was 5,000 gold pieces. And this one had a casting time of 8, which was 8 segments. So it could be cast in a round. So awesome spell. This was a go-to spell for me when I played 1st and 2nd edition. Let's look at 3rd edition. Here's 3rd edition right down here. It starts as now 3rd edition did a little change. It wasn't one spell. It was a number of different spells. So it was symbol of death, symbol of pain, symbol of stun, all that stuff. So symbol of death, and some of them are different levels. So symbol of death is an 8th level spell. It took 10 minutes to cast it, and you inscribed it on something, and then when it's triggered, symbol of death slays one or more creatures within 60 feet whose combined total current hit points do not exceed 150. Just dead. And it affects creatures, the symbol of death affects the closest creatures first, skipping creatures with too many hit points. Once triggered, the symbol becomes active and glows, lasting for 10 minutes per caster level or until it affects 150 hit points. And I think it had a range of around 60 feet. It has a range of 0, but 60 feet. It's 60 feet up there. There it is right there. So it basically just went the closest thing, 100 hit points, gone. If the next thing had 50 hit points, gone. So very, very potent. Now the next symbol, and there's a lot of other things in it, talks about like how the symbol works and how you trigger it and all that stuff. The next symbol was symbol of fear, which was a 6th level spell. So they kind of broke these out into different levels. And it functions like a symbol of death, except that all creatures within 60 feet of the symbol of fear instead become panicked for 1 round. And I think because it acts like symbol of death, it's 150 hit points. And then we had symbol of insanity, which functions like symbol of death, so 150 hit points. And all creatures within the radius of the symbol instead become permanently insane as the insanity spell. It has no hit point limit. Once triggered, a symbol of insanity simply remains active for 10 minutes per caster level. And let's see, did this one have it? This one, it doesn't say here. And I think it had a hit point limit for symbol of fear. And then there was symbol of pain, which is 5th level. Unlike symbol of death, symbol of pain has no point limit, and it gave some penalties. And then there was symbol of persuasion, which was not in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and it functions like that. Unlike symbol of death, symbol of persuasion has no hit point limit. Once triggered, a symbol of persuasion remains active for 10 minutes, and all creatures become charmed by the caster. And then we had symbol of sleep, and the spell functions like symbol of death, except all creatures of 10 hit dice or less within 60 feet just fall asleep. They're asleep. That's it. No hit point. They just go to sleep. And then symbol of stunning, which does function like symbol of death, except that all creatures within 60 feet become stunned for 1 to 6 rounds. And that had a hit point. So it's like the same thing, but it had a hit point. And then we had Symbol of Weakness, which is 7th level. Symbol of Stun was a 7th level. Symbol of Weakness was the last one. That was a 7th level. It had no hit point limit. So everything got whacked with a weakness and instead suffers crippling weakness that deals 3d6 points of strength damage. So you could actually go to 0 strength. So the symbols were actually pretty good spells, but they took forever. Because if we go back to Symbol of Death, that took 10 minutes to cast. So it wasn't something you were going to cast in combat. All right, let's get back to this. So here's Symbol. We gave this a C-. They just took too much away. And I didn't like that, but it is what it is. This was a pretty powerful spell. It's still a pretty powerful spell. It can be useful. I think it's better as a DM's tool than it is for a player tool. All right, that is what I have for everybody today. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and I will catch everybody